What if the story of our world is not as simple as we think? We are told that human history stretches back only a few thousand years, yet scattered clues suggest something far stranger. Ruins that should not exist, myths that repeat across cultures, and landscapes that carry scars of immense destruction. These hints, woven into the fabric of our planet and our oldest stories, whisper of a past far more complex than we generally accept. Imagine if Earth has not been shaped by one continuous timeline, but by countless beginnings and endings. Entire civilizations may have risen, reached heights we cannot imagine, and then disappeared without a trace, leaving us to start again. Tonight, we will explore the quiet possibility that Earth has been reset thousands of times. When we hear the word reset, we often think of something quick and simple like pressing a button on a machine. But when we imagine the Earth resetting, it becomes something much more profound. It is not a single instantaneous event, but a slow, powerful process that unfolds across thousands of years. A reset, in this sense, does not only mean destruction, but transformation. It is a grand cosmic rhythm where old worlds end and new ones quietly begin, reshaped by forces beyond our immediate comprehension. This cyclical view, once considered radical, offers a compelling framework for understanding many puzzles that surround our understanding of the past. It suggests that what we perceive as mysteries may simply be echoes from a previous turn of the cycle. We look at our timeline of history, and it feels short, almost too short, for the vast age of the planet. Civilization as we know it is said to be only 6,000 or 7,000 years old. Agriculture, writing, cities, and all the things we call progress are thought to have begun only recently in geological terms. This compressed narrative leaves immense stretches of time unaccounted for, creating a profound silence in our historical record. Yet the Earth itself is over 4 billion years old, and humans in their modern form have existed for hundreds of thousands of years. What was happening during all that time? Were our ancestors really doing nothing of consequence? Living in the same way for unthinkable ages? Merely surviving until suddenly, almost overnight, they began building temples, carving stones, and sailing across oceans? This traditional narrative creates a stark discontinuity, a leap in human capability that seems to defy the natural pace of development. The reset theory suggests another possibility. Perhaps civilizations did rise before in those long, silent ages. Perhaps they built things we cannot easily imagine and lived in ways that do not fit our assumptions about ancient life. But then something happened. The world changed. Ice returned, or seas rose, or a fire swept the land. Entire populations may have been lost, and the traces of their culture buried under soil, sand, or ocean. Over time, nature covered everything. Mountains shifted, rivers moved, and the evidence of a previous world became difficult to recognize. This may sound like science fiction, but when we look at the geological record, we find reminders of immense shifts. Species have vanished many times in what scientists call mass extinctions, each followed by a slow rebuilding of life. If nature itself has been reset, why not humanity as well? The idea does not require us to believe in something impossible. It only asks us to consider that human history could be part of the same grand cycle that affects every other form of life on Earth. A cycle of profound change and quiet renewal, repeating across deep time. So when we talk about resets, we are not only imagining floods or comets, we are imagining the possibility that Earth itself moves in rhythms, cycles of destruction and renewal, that that encompass all life. We are imagining that our place in history may not be unique, but one of many layers, with countless others hidden below us, waiting quietly in the deep time of the planet. Our current understanding may only be the surface of a much longer, more complex story, stretching back through forgotten ages, with our civilization standing as a recent chapter in an infinitely unfolding narrative. When we search for traces of forgotten civilizations, we often expect clear signs, grand cities, tools, or writings carved in stone. But what if most evidence has already been erased? The Earth is not a museum that preserves everything exactly as it was. It is a restless surface, constantly reshaping itself. Mountains rise and fall, rivers carve through valleys, forests grow and disappear, and oceans shift their boundaries. Over the span of just a few thousand years, an entire city can vanish beneath soil or sea. Over tens of thousands, almost nothing recognizable would remain.
It is easy to forget how fragile evidence can be. A modern city, if abandoned today, would decay quickly. Within a few hundred years, vegetation would cover concrete, metal would corrode, and wood would rot. After 1,000 years, most structures would collapse. After 10,000 years, it would be difficult to see much at all. Add another ice age, rising seas, or volcanic activity, and almost nothing would remain. If advanced civilizations once lived before us, we should not expect to find complete cities waiting intact. We should expect only fragments, puzzling ruins, scattered artifacts, or stories passed down as myth. In places like Turkey, India, and South America, archaeologists have uncovered structures far older than anyone expected. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey is perhaps the most famous. It is a vast ceremonial site made of enormous carved stones, some weighing many tons, and it dates back at least 12,000 years. This is thousands of years before writing, agriculture, or permanent settlements were supposed to exist. According to the traditional view, people at that time were simple hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons and living in small nomadic groups. Their understanding of the world was thought to be rudimentary, their social structures basic, focused solely on immediate survival. Yet here, at Göbekli Tepe, we find them working together to move massive stones, to carve intricate symbols, and to build a structure that required knowledge, organization, and skill on a scale that utterly defies conventional archaeological wisdom. The pillars, some reaching up to 20 feet in height and weighing 60 tons, are T-shaped, often adorned with detailed carvings of animals like boars, foxes, snakes, and birds. These are not crude etchings. They are sophisticated, artistic expressions, conveying a complex worldview. The precise arrangement of these megaliths within circular enclosures suggests astronomical alignments, hinting at a deep understanding of celestial mechanics. Such an undertaking would have required not just immense physical labor, but also a hierarchical society capable of coordinating hundreds of individuals, specialized craftsmen, and a shared ceremonial purpose that motivated decades, perhaps centuries, of continuous effort. Göbekli Tepe suggests that the capacity for complex culture, for monumental architecture, and for a profound spiritual life existed long before the dawn of agriculture and settled villages, pushing back the accepted timeline of human societal development by thousands of years. It is an echo from a time when people, thought to be primitive, built something extraordinary. Göbekli Tepe is not alone. Off the coast of Japan, beneath the waters of Yonaguni, there is a set of stone formations that look remarkably like terraces and steps, giant geometric shapes carved into the bedrock. This underwater anomaly, discovered in the mid-1980s, has fueled an intense debate among scientists and researchers. Some believe it is a natural formation, sculpted over millennia by geological forces and erosion, its sharp angles and flat surfaces merely coincidental products of nature's immense power. The underwater currents and seismic activity in the region are certainly capable of shaping rock in unusual ways, but others argue it shows clear signs of deliberate shaping. The symmetrical steps, the perfectly right-angled corners, the distinct platforms and channels, and even what appear to be carved animal figures or symbols, all suggest human intervention. If it is man-made, it would mean people built complex stone structures more than 10,000 years ago, at a time when this landmass would have been above sea level, before the last ice age ended and the oceans rose. The sheer scale of the structure, spanning hundreds of feet, and the precision of its cuts would imply a level of engineering and organization that official history does not allow for such an early period. It would predate the known great civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia by thousands of years, offering a glimpse of a sophisticated culture lost beneath the waves.
In India, there are submerged ruins near Dwarka, a city mentioned in ancient texts as a great city of the past. The Mahabharata, one of India's oldest epic poems, describes Dwarka as a magnificent coastal metropolis built by the deity Krishna, which eventually sank beneath the waves after his departure. For centuries, this was treated as a mythological tale, a symbolic narrative without a basis in physical reality. However, archaeological expeditions, particularly off the coast of Gujarat and the Gulf of Cambay, have begun to uncover evidence that challenges this conventional dismissal. Sonar scans have revealed what appeared to be the remains of large urban settlements, now submerged, lying hundreds of feet underwater. Divers have recovered artifacts such as pottery, tools, and even what seem to be structural components, including precisely cut stone blocks. Some estimates place these ruins at 9,000 years old or more, which would push the history of Indian civilization back far beyond the accepted timeline, long before the earliest known cities of the Indus Valley. The fact that these ruins now rest under the sea suggests they were built before sea levels rose dramatically at the end of the last ice age, when vast amounts of glacial ice melted and reshaped coastlines around the world. These findings compel us to consider that these ancient stories might be more than mere legend. They could be distorted but persistent memories of real places, real civilizations that once thrived along now submerged shores. Across the world, from South America to the Mediterranean, there are scattered stories of cities lost beneath the waves. Ancient Greek writers spoke of Helike, a city swallowed by the sea after an earthquake. Mayan traditions hint at lands submerged by cataclysmic floods. Celtic legends tell of Lyonesse, a rich kingdom off the coast of Cornwall that sank beneath the waves. Well, mainstream history often treats these as legends, as fanciful tales meant to entertain or explain natural phenomena. But the discoveries of actual submerged ruins, like those near Dwarka or the debated Yonaguni structures, force us to reconsider. Consider Pavlopetri, off the coast of Greece, a city recognized officially by archaeologists, which lies just a few meters underwater. It dates back around 5,000 years, making it one of the oldest submerged archaeological sites in the world. Pavlopetri features streets, buildings, courtyards, and even tombs, all remarkably well preserved by the sea. While not as ancient as Göbekli Tepe or the potential age of Yonaguni, Pavlopetri serves as a powerful reminder of how easily coastal settlements can be lost when seas rise or land subsides. If a city as comparatively recent as Pavlopetri could vanish beneath the waves and remain hidden for millennia, how many older, deeper sites lie beyond easy reach, waiting to be discovered, their existence only hinted at in the forgotten legends of humanity? These anomalies are important because they do not fit the neat, linear story of civilization's rise, a story that suggests a gradual, continuous progression from simple hunter-gatherers to complex urban societies over a relatively short period.
Instead, they present a fragmented picture where advanced capabilities appear suddenly and inexplicably, thousands of years ahead of their supposed time. They are, in a very real sense, broken fragments, clues without context. We look at them and say, this should not be here, because they disrupt our comfortable narrative of slow, steady progress. But if we accept the possibility of a world shaped by cycles, by resets, then these anomalies suddenly make sense. A people may have developed skills and knowledge, built grand structures, and created sophisticated cultures only to be erased by catastrophe. A cataclysm, whether flood, fire, or ice, could have swept away their world, burying their cities, submerging their coastlines, and scattering their population. What remains is a broken fragment, a clue without context, a whisper from a previous age. Later, when humanity rises again, when survivors slowly rebuild and new civilizations emerge, these fragments become mysterious outliers. They are not merely exceptions to the rule, they are remnants of the last cycle, haunting reminders of skills and knowledge that were lost, then quietly waiting in the deep time of the planet for us to find them.
In the strange hints that defy our timelines, we find echoes of forgotten pasts, fragments unearthed from soil or retrieved from the deep. But beyond these human-made enigmas, the planet itself whispers a much grander, more violent truth. The Earth carries its own history, etched not in carved stone or submerged ruins, but in layers of rock, ice, and ancient sediment. When we read these geological records, a different picture emerges, one less of quiet evolution and more of immense destruction and profound transformation, revealing a pattern of repeated cosmic upheaval. The very tapestry of life on Earth is not a smooth, continuous weave. Instead, it is punctuated by moments of terrifying rupture, events scientists call mass extinctions. These are not merely the gentle ebb and flow of species, but global cataclysms where the intricate web of life unravels on an astonishing scale. Vast numbers of creatures, entire ecosystems vanish forever, often with bewildering speed. The fossil record, a meticulously preserved chronicle written in stone, reveals that life has been nearly wiped clean not once, but at least 5 times throughout its deep history. Imagine worlds where oceans fell silent and continents lay barren, where species that had dominated for millions of years simply ceased to exist, their reign obliterated. Yet with a profound, almost defiant rhythm, after each such obliteration, the Earth does not remain desolate. Slowly, painstakingly, life rebuilds. New species emerge, new forms of existence take hold, adapting to the transformed world, carving out niches in a landscape profoundly altered. This cyclical process is nature's own relentless mechanism of destruction and renewal, a profound rhythm that affects every living thing, from the smallest microbe to the most complex organism. If nature itself has undergone such dramatic, epoch-defining resets, with life re-emerging in entirely new forms, it compels us to consider a potent question. Why should human civilization, with all its perceived advancements, be exempt from such profound and recurring cycles? One of the clearest and most monumental patterns of Earth's violent rhythms is the relentless cycle of ice ages. For millions of years, our planet has swung back and forth between relatively warm periods and long, frigid epochs where colossal sheets of ice covered much of the northern hemisphere. These glaciers were not just a thin blanket of snow, they were immense, continental-scale masses, kilometers thick, grinding inexorably across landscapes, carving out vast valleys and reshaping entire landmasses with unimaginable slow-motion power. Forests were buried, ancient river systems were diverted or ceased to flow, and entire regions became utterly uninhabitable under this crushing weight of frozen water. Life and any potential civilization would have been forced to retreat or perish. But the destruction did not end with the ice. When these immense glaciers finally retreated, a different,
equally transformative process began. The melting ice released colossal volumes of water, causing global sea levels to rise dramatically by over 100 meters. Coastlines around the world, once home to thriving ecosystems and potentially to early human settlements, were progressively, irrevocably submerged beneath the expanding oceans. Imagine a world where the very edge of the land shifted by hundreds of feet over a few millennia, swallowing everything built along the ancient shores, burying countless stories beneath the waves. This cycle of freezing and melting has repeated many times throughout Earth's history, each advance and retreat of the ice sheets acting as a colossal slow-motion eraser. Any evidence of past life, any traces of early human habitation or developing culture along those now drowned coastlines would be buried under layers of marine sediment, eroded by the relentless currents, or simply lost to the abyssal depths beyond easy reach or recognition. From this perspective, the ice ages are not merely climatic shifts. They are powerful agents of planetary reset, ensuring that little remains of what came before, preparing a newly sculpted stage for whatever life or civilization will emerge next.
Further compelling evidence of Earth's volatile nature comes from a more recent chapter in our planet's story, a period of sudden and devastating climate reversal known as the Younger Dryas event. Around 12,800 years ago, just as the last great ice age was finally beginning to wane and the planet was steadily warming, something dramatic and profoundly unexpected occurred. Global temperatures, which had been on an upward trend, plunged sharply back into freezing conditions. This was not a gradual cooling over millennia, but an abrupt, violent snapback into an almost ice age climate, a chilling reversal that lasted for more than 1,000 years. It was as if the Earth itself had slammed on the brakes of climate recovery, reversing its course towards warmth. The precise cause of the Younger Dryas remains a subject of intense scientific debate, but one compelling and widely discussed theory suggests a cosmic impact. Researchers propose that a comet or asteroid struck the Earth or exploded with immense force in its upper atmosphere, sending colossal plumes of debris and superheated steam into the sky. This impact could have triggered massive global wildfires, darkened the sky for an extended period, and critically, disrupted the vast ocean currents that regulate Earth's climate, plunging the northern hemisphere back into an icy grip. If a civilization, perhaps one more complex and interconnected than we presently imagine for that era, existed during this period, its destruction would have been almost certain. An environment that had been slowly improving would have turned brutally hostile overnight. Agricultural systems would have failed utterly, established societies would have fractured, and the dwindling survivors would have faced an utterly transformed world, one where the struggle for basic existence would be the overwhelming, all-consuming priority. The Younger Dryas serves as a stark, chilling reminder that even in seemingly stable geological periods, Earth is capable of sudden, profound, and devastating shifts, possessing the power to erase what came before with an almost inconceivable speed and brutality. To understand the full, terrifying scale of Earth's capacity for destruction and subsequent renewal, we must journey much further back in time, to an event so utterly cataclysmic it fundamentally altered the course of life on this planet forever. Roughly 65 million years ago, a giant asteroid, estimated to be between 10 and 15 kilometers wide, the size of Mount Everest, slammed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact generated an explosion equivalent to billions of atomic bombs, creating the Chicxulub crater, a geological scar so immense it stretches for hundreds of kilometers and is now largely buried. But the crater itself was only the immediate consequence. The force of the impact sent a colossal plume of superheated rock, dust, and vapor soaring high into the atmosphere, creating tsunamis hundreds of feet high that scoured ancient coastlines, triggering global wildfires that incinerated vast forests, and unleashing shockwaves that circled the entire planet multiple times. The sky would have darkened for months, even years, as sunlight was blocked by the immense debris cloud, plunging the world into a prolonged period of darkness and cold. Photosynthesis, the very foundation of almost all life on Earth, would have largely ceased.
This single extraordinary event wiped out approximately 75% of all species on Earth, including, famously, the mighty dinosaurs, which had dominated the planet for a staggering 165 million years. Entire lineages, entire branches of life, were simply obliterated. Yet, as with all the Earth's profound resets, the story did not end in desolation. Life, tenacious and incredibly resilient, found a way to endure and adapt. With the dinosaurs gone, the ecological stage was dramatically cleared and reset, setting the conditions for a new era. Mammals, once small, nocturnal, and largely relegated to the shadows, suddenly had the opportunity to diversify and rise to dominance. The Chicxulub impact was not merely a disaster, it was a profound planetary reset, clearing the way for new forms of life to flourish, ultimately shaping the world we know today, and demonstrating that Earth has been fundamentally remade, not just once, but many times, by forces both internal and external, beyond any living thing's control.
Not all global resets are precipitated by cosmic impacts from beyond our world. Forces from within the Earth itself can unleash devastation on a planetary scale. Around 74,000 years ago, a truly colossal eruption occurred at the Toba supervolcano, located on the island of Sumatra in Indonesia. This was not a typical volcanic event. It was an eruption of such unimaginable raw power that it ejected an estimated 2,800 cubic kilometers of ash and rock into the atmosphere, making it one of the largest known eruptions in the last 25 million years. The ash cloud spread across vast distances, covering much of India and Southeast Asia under meters of volcanic debris. More critically, the eruption caused a profound phenomenon known as a volcanic winter. The sheer volume of aerosols and dust injected high into the stratosphere blocked sunlight, leading to a dramatic reduction in global temperatures for several years, perhaps even a decade or more. The planet was plunged into a prolonged period of darkness and severe cold, disrupting weather patterns and devastating ecosystems worldwide. For humanity, a species then still in its infancy, this event was a severe, existential test of survival. Genetic studies suggest that the Toba eruption may have caused a catastrophic bottleneck in human populations, reducing our total numbers to a mere few thousand individuals globally. This implies that our species, Homo sapiens, came perilously close to extinction. If this theory holds true, then every person alive today is a descendant of those few resilient survivors who endured the brutal volcanic winter, those who clung to existence and carried the torch of humanity forward. The Toba supervolcano thus demonstrates that even without an external impact, Earth's own internal dynamics can trigger resets on a profound, terrifying scale, capable of shrinking even seemingly adaptable species like our ancestors to vulnerable, struggling groups, forcing a fundamental restart for life itself across vast regions of the globe. What this overwhelming body of geological evidence clearly and undeniably shows is that the Earth is anything but a stable, unchanging stage upon which civilization calmly and continuously unfolds. It is a dynamic, often hostile environment, a living, breathing entity capable of sudden, violent, and utterly transformative upheavals. Floods of unimaginable scale, asteroid impacts with world-ending force, supervolcanic eruptions that shroud the planet in darkness, and vast, crushing sheets of ice have all played their part, shaping and reshaping its surface again and again across deep time. Each of these events possessed the raw power to obliterate, to cleanse, to erase what came before with a terrifying finality. If we imagine that civilizations, in any form, existed in earlier ages, it becomes terrifyingly easy to see how they could have been entirely swept away. Their cities could have been crushed by advancing glaciers, drowned by dramatically rising seas, incinerated by global fires, or buried under meters of ash from cataclysmic eruptions. Only the most durable fragments might survive, scattered and difficult to interpret, like faint whispers across an immense silent chasm of time. The geological record is not merely a chronicle of rock and ice. It is a profound testament that resets are not only possible, but they are a fundamental recurring part of the natural history of this planet. The question we must then consider, with a sense of quiet dread and profound wonder, is not whether such events happen, but whether human civilization, in its various fragile forms, has been caught in their destructive, cyclical path more often than we are willing or able to realize. If the Earth itself carries the scars of immense destruction written into its very geology as we have seen, then it is perhaps no surprise that humanity also holds fragmented memories of these cataclysms. Beyond the deep time recorded in rock and ice, there are whispers that suggest knowledge from forgotten ages has endured. These whispers come in many forms: ancient stories passed down through generations, curious maps that defy their supposed origins, and monumental structures built with skills that puzzle modern minds. They hint at a pre-existing understanding, a wisdom carried through cycles of loss and renewal, challenging the neat, linear story of human progress we've been told.
One of the most profound echoes of a lost past resonates in the flood myths, which appear with astonishing regularity across cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years. In the Western world, the story of Noah and his ark is widely known, a tale of a global deluge that wiped out almost all life, leaving only a chosen few to repopulate the world. But this narrative is far from unique to the biblical tradition. Long before, in ancient Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh recounts the tale of Utnapishtim, a man warned by the gods to build a great boat and save his family and animals from an impending flood intended to destroy humanity. The parallels are striking, suggesting a shared origin or a common memory. Yet the flood story extends far beyond the Fertile Crescent. In India, ancient Hindu texts describe Manu, a primal man who, warned by a divine fish of a great flood, builds a boat and preserves the seeds of life. In classical Greece, the myth of Deucalion and Pyrrha tells of a deluge sent by Zeus from which only two survivors emerge to cast stones over their shoulders, creating new generations of humanity. Across the Americas, the Mayan Popol Vuh speaks of several creations and destructions, including a devastating flood. Even among the distant islands of the Pacific, Polynesian traditions recount tales of great floods that submerged lands and reshaped their world. It is difficult to believe that so many disparate cultures, with no apparent contact, could independently invent such remarkably similar narratives. These are not merely symbolic stories. They sound less like invention and more like a collective memory, passed down from a time when the world truly was covered by water, as it was at the end of the last great ice age. Beyond the universal flood, other myths speak of different forms of destruction, highlighting a repeating pattern of cataclysm and rebirth. Many Native American traditions, for instance, describe the world ending not just once, but multiple times, sometimes by water, sometimes by fire, sometimes by ice. In Norse mythology, the Epic of Ragnarok foretells the end of the world in a cataclysm of fire and ice, where the old gods and the world itself are consumed by flames, only for a new, green, and fertile land to emerge. Hindu cosmology, with its vast cycles called yugas, envisions each age culminating in a period of destruction and chaos, whether by water, fire, or cosmic collapse, before a new age quietly begins. The striking consistency across these myths is the rhythm of loss and renewal. The world becomes unlivable, nearly all life is wiped away, and then something new starts. These shared narratives, echoing across continents and millennia, suggest that humanity has a deep, collective memory of a fragile existence, of worlds that have ended and begun again. These echoes of lost knowledge are not confined to oral traditions. They also appear in artifacts, challenging our accepted understanding of history. Consider the Antikythera mechanism discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece. At first, it appeared to be merely a corroded lump of bronze, but painstaking research revealed it to be an extraordinary device, a complex arrangement of interlocking gears capable of predicting astronomical events with startling accuracy, including eclipses and planetary movements. Dating back over 2,000 years, it is often called the world's first analog computer. Yet nothing else of its complexity or purpose was known to exist again for more than a millennium. Its existence implies a level of technological sophistication far beyond what is typically attributed to the ancient world. How many other such devices were created, used, and then lost to the depths of time and the sea? Even older anomalies present themselves. In South Africa, mysterious metal spheres have been discovered in geological layers dated to billions of years ago. These objects, some with intricate grooves around their circumference, possess a symmetry that some scientists argue could not be natural. While their origin is debated, they serve as a potent reminder of how little we truly understand about the deep past and what forms of existence might have once thrived in earlier cycles. Furthermore, some ancient carvings and artworks appear to depict things far ahead of their time. In ancient temples in India, figures are interpreted by some as resembling rockets or flying crafts. In Mesoamerican art, specific carvings are seen by others as representations of astronauts or complex machinery. These interpretations, though controversial, raise the possibility that fragments of memory from a more technologically advanced past may have been encoded and passed down in symbolic forms, appearing to us as imagination, but perhaps reflecting something tangible from a previous cycle.
Perhaps the most compelling physical evidence for pre-existing knowledge comes from ancient maps that defy their supposed age. The Piri-Reis map, compiled in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, is perhaps the most famous example. It shows not only familiar coastlines of Europe, Africa, and South America, but also a landmass to the south that bears a striking resemblance to Antarctica. Even more puzzling, this coastline is depicted as ice-free, as it would have been thousands of years ago, before it was covered by its current vast ice sheet. Mainstream history tells us Antarctica was not officially discovered until the early 19th century, yet a map from 1513 shows its outline, and without ice. Piri-Reis himself noted that his map was compiled from many older sources, some of which he described as ancient. If true, this implies that knowledge of Antarctica and other global coastlines may have come from civilizations existing long before the rise of known map-making or seafaring cultures. The Piri-Reis map is not an isolated anomaly. The Orontius Phineus map of 1531 similarly depicts Antarctica with ice-free coastlines. Even more remarkably, the Boischet map of 1737 portrays rivers and mountain ranges beneath Antarctica's ice sheet, features that modern science only confirmed in the 20th century through advanced radar and satellite imaging. If these maps were indeed copied from far older sources, it suggests that someone possessed the capability to survey Antarctica and even penetrate its ice long before our written history acknowledges such technological prowess. Other ancient maps display surprising accuracy for remote regions, such as rivers and mountain ranges in South America, details that would have been almost impossible to know without extensive exploration or inherited knowledge. While some argue these accuracies are mere guesswork or coincidence, the recurring patterns across multiple maps make such explanations increasingly difficult to accept. These anomalous maps stand as silent, baffling testaments to a lost age of exploration and advanced geographical understanding. Then there are the megalithic sites scattered across the world, built with stones so massive and arranged with such precision that they continue to puzzle researchers. Stonehenge in England is a prime example. Its colossal standing stones are meticulously aligned to mark the solstices, transforming the monument into a sophisticated astronomical calendar. This suggests not only immense effort and cooperation, but also a deep understanding of celestial mechanics,
far beyond simple survival skills. It raises the question, why did these ancient builders dedicate such resources to tracking cosmic events? Was it purely ceremonial, or did it connect to a deeper, inherited knowledge of Earth's cycles? Even more astounding are the ruins of Pumapunku in Bolivia. Here, immense blocks of stone, some weighing over 100 tons, are cut with extraordinary precision. Many stones feature intricate shapes, perfectly interlocking angles, and smooth, flat surfaces, almost like modern puzzle pieces. The level of fine detail and exactitude in their cuts suggests tools far more advanced than the simple stone implements conventionally attributed to the people who supposedly built it over 1,000 years ago. Without metal tools or the wheel, the engineering required to quarry, transport, and precisely shape these stones remains an enduring mystery. It challenges the very assumptions we hold about the technological capabilities of ancient societies. The Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt adds another layer to this enigma. Beyond its sheer, overwhelming scale, the pyramid is aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions. Its construction exhibits a precision so exact that even with modern engineering, replicating it would be a formidable task. Some researchers propose that the pyramid also encodes sophisticated mathematical and astronomical knowledge, including values like pi and the precise dimensions of the Earth. If these theories hold true, they imply that the pyramid's builders possessed a level of understanding far greater than they are typically credited with. These monumental achievements, appearing in periods we consider technologically rudimentary, suggest a hidden depth of knowledge.
All of these diverse clues, the repeating patterns and global myths, the anachronistic accuracy of ancient maps, the engineering marvels of megalithic sites, and the perplexing existence of anomalous artifacts, point to a similar conclusion. They hint that people in the distant past possessed knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and global geography at levels beyond what their accepted timeline should allow. These are not merely random coincidences or simple errors. Instead, they may be the enduring fragments of knowledge carried through cycles, preserved in symbolic form within stories, encoded in the precise alignments of enduring structures, or inadvertently copied onto later maps. They are echoes of lost civilizations, capabilities beyond what we assume, survivors of worlds erased by cataclysm, leaving us with potent, puzzling clues to a much older, far more complex human story. The maps and artifacts we have considered offer tantalizing glimpses, like scattered words from a forgotten language. Yet despite these whispers from a deeper past, a profound and pervasive silence blankets the majority of human history. This silence, this vast chronological gap in our understanding, raises its own questions. Why, if hints of advanced knowledge exist, does so much of our past feel empty? The earliest known forms of writing appeared only about 5,000 years ago. This means that everything we consider documented history, the narratives preserved in stone, clay, or papyrus, covers less than 3% of the time anatomically modern humans have walked the earth. For the other 97% of our species' existence, the record is largely silent. We find tools, bones, and remnants of campsites, but the detailed story of culture, society, and innovation is absent. This imbalance often leads us to perceive the ages before writing as primitive and uneventful, as though nothing significant truly happened. But this perception may be an illusion, a consequence of what has survived rather than a reflection of what actually was. The absence of a written record does not necessarily mean the absence of culture, knowledge, or even complex societies. It simply means we lack their durable records. Consider the fragility and selective nature of record preservation.
The destruction of the Library of Alexandria, often romanticized as the greatest loss of ancient knowledge, was not a single event, but a gradual erosion over centuries. Countless scrolls, texts, and scientific insights vanished forever, leaving us to wonder what was lost. Even when writing exists, it is incredibly vulnerable. Fires, wars, natural disasters, and simple neglect can erase entire archives within a generation. If previous civilizations had extensive written records, a global catastrophe could have swept them away, leaving their survivors to begin again with nothing but oral tradition. Moreover, the materials used for writing play a critical role in what endures. We know of Mesopotamia because clay tablets were baked and proved remarkably durable. We know of Egypt because hieroglyphs were carved into enduring stone. But what of cultures that might have recorded their knowledge on wood, bark, cloth, or parchment? Such materials decay rapidly. Wood structures rot within centuries. Textiles and paper disintegrate, often within decades, unless preserved under incredibly rare and specific conditions. Over the span of thousands of years, almost all organic records would vanish completely, leaving no trace. If previous societies possessed writing but used materials that time could easily consume, then their histories would be lost to us, regardless of their complexity or achievements. Beyond the fragility of written records, the relentless forces of nature are master erasers. Imagine a modern city abandoned today. Within a few hundred years, vegetation would cover concrete, steel structures would corrode and crumble, and wooden buildings would rot into dust. After 1,000 years, most of what we consider permanent would have collapsed. After 10,000 years, it would be difficult to discern much at all. Now add the effects of repeated ice ages, with glaciers carving through landscapes and burying entire regions under kilometers of ice. Consider dramatic sea level rises, which can drown vast coastal settlements, or the burial of entire cities under layers of sediment from floods or volcanic eruptions. Even stone erodes, metal corrodes, and eventually, over immense stretches of time, almost all human creations disappear. From this perspective, the silence in the deep past is not mysterious, it is expected. The earth does not preserve everything. It constantly reshakes and reclaims.
And yet, within this silence, we observe moments of sudden, unexplained progress, often referred to as creative explosions. Around 40,000 years ago, after hundreds of thousands of years during which anatomically modern humans used relatively simple stone tools, something remarkable happened. Suddenly, cave paintings of astonishing sophistication appeared in places like France and Spain. We see the emergence of carved figurines, musical instruments, and a rapid spread of advanced hunting tools. This period marks a dramatic leap forward in cultural expression and technological innovation. Why did this sudden flowering of creativity occur then, and not earlier, if humanity had possessed the same brain and body for so long? One compelling possibility is that we are witnessing a reawakening, a recovery after a reset. Perhaps earlier cultures existed, developed knowledge, and were then largely destroyed. Survivors would have been reduced to smaller groups, focused solely on basic survival. Over time, as conditions stabilized and populations recovered, they would begin to rebuild, rediscovering skills and recreating culture. To us, looking back through the fragmented record, it appears as a sudden explosion of creativity. In reality, it may have been a slow, arduous rediscovery and reestablishment of what was lost. Similar leaps appear later in history. The simultaneous appearance of agriculture around 10,000 years ago in multiple, geographically separate regions, the Middle East, China, the Americas, and Africa, is another puzzle.
While environmental stability following the last ice age certainly created favorable conditions, some researchers wonder if this widespread shift was less about independent invention from scratch and more about rediscovery. Could fragments of older knowledge about planting, harvesting, and food storage have been passed down through oral traditions, latent until conditions allowed them to flourish once more? The rapid rise of cities shortly thereafter, with complex societies, writing, and monumental architecture seemingly emerging fully formed in places like Mesopotamia and Egypt, further reinforces this idea. Archaeology often struggles to show a long, gradual build-up to these complex cultures. Instead, they appear with striking suddenness, as if a switch had been flipped. If resets are part of Earth's story, then these rapid advancements become understandable as periods of recovery, where humanity, drawing on faint memories or rediscovered knowledge, rebuilds quickly. The disappearance of other human species also speaks to the profound impact of environmental shifts. The Neanderthals, close relatives of modern humans, thrived across Europe and Asia for hundreds of thousands of years. They were strong, intelligent, and even capable of art and symbolic thought. Yet they vanished, leaving only genetic traces in our DNA. Why did they disappear so suddenly? Was it competition, disease, or a larger environmental catastrophe? It is plausible that Neanderthals, like earlier human cultures, may have been caught in one of these resets, unable to survive the rapid and profound changes that followed. Their disappearance, along with countless other species in mass extinctions, highlights how fragile life can be when faced with Earth's violent rhythms. This line of thinking leads to the intriguing Silurian hypothesis, a scientific thought experiment about whether an ancient technological society could be detected millions of years later. The idea posits that if an advanced society existed, say, 100 million years ago, its physical traces would be almost entirely gone. Skyscrapers, machines, and cities would have long since been subducted by tectonic plates, eroded to dust, or swallowed by geological processes. But such a society might leave behind subtle, indirect evidence. Scientists might look for unusual spikes in carbon isotopes, indicating large-scale burning of fossil fuels, or synthetic chemical signatures in ancient sediments. They might search for non-natural distributions of elements, or patterns in the fossil record that suggested disruption beyond typical natural events. The Silurian hypothesis does not claim that such a society existed, but it compels us to consider how we might recognize its faint signature if it did, forcing us to redefine what we look for when searching for past life, human or otherwise.
However, the idea of repeated civilizations and resets often encounters significant skepticism from mainstream science. Archaeology, geology, and anthropology are disciplines built upon measurable, testable evidence. Within this framework, extraordinary claims are rightly expected to be supported by extraordinary proof. Since no complete cities or undeniable, unambiguous artifacts from earlier advanced cycles have been definitively uncovered and accepted by consensus, the idea of forgotten civilizations is generally treated as speculation rather than established fact. Part of this caution stems from the very nature of scientific methodology. Researchers operate within established models, and these models guide their interpretations. If the accepted model states that civilization began around 6,000 years ago, then any evidence appearing to be significantly older is naturally scrutinized within that existing framework. Anomalies are frequently explained as natural formations, misidentifications, errors, or even hoaxes. This rigorous approach is vital for preventing false claims, but it can also make it incredibly difficult for ideas that fundamentally challenge the prevailing paradigm to be seriously considered, especially when the evidence is fragmented and open to multiple interpretations. There are also practical and cultural factors at play.
Funding for research tends to favor projects that support established theories rather than those that might overturn them entirely. Excavations are immensely expensive, and most resources are directed towards sites already known to fit neatly into the official timeline. This means that places that might potentially reveal older or unusual evidence, such as deep layers beneath existing ruins or submerged ancient coastlines, are rarely investigated with the depth and resources they might require. The silence of the record, therefore, may not solely reflect what has been lost, but also what we have not yet chosen to look for, or what our current tools and models are not designed to find. Culturally, the idea of resets also challenges a comforting narrative, the story of linear human progress. We prefer to believe that civilization is a steady upward climb from simple beginnings to our complex, technologically advanced present, seeing ourselves at the pinnacle of this journey. To suggest that entire cycles of civilization may have risen and fallen before us is unsettling. It implies that progress is fragile, that what we have built can be erased, and that our current achievements may not be unique or permanent. For many, it is easier to dismiss such ideas than to confront their profound and humbling implications. Yet science is not a static field. It is constantly evolving. History repeatedly demonstrates that ideas once ridiculed can later become foundational when new evidence emerges. Continental drift, for example, was once dismissed as impossible by geologists, yet it is now the bedrock of plate tectonics. The same trajectory may await the idea of resets. As new technologies allow us to scan the ocean floor with greater resolution, analyze ice cores for deeper atmospheric clues, and probe layers of soil and rock that were once inaccessible, we may uncover evidence that shifts the accepted model. If that happens, what is now considered speculation could one day become part of our accepted history. For the moment, mainstream science remains skeptical, primarily because the evidence is fragmentary, scattered, and ambiguous. But the lack of official recognition does not mean the idea is impossible. It simply means the search continues. And if resets are real, then the fragments we find, the anomalous artifacts, the myths of floods, the ruins beneath the sea, and the sudden leaps in our past may one day come together to tell a story far older and more complex than the one we currently believe. If the silence of the past is indeed a veil, hiding countless cycles of rise and fall, then it compels us to look at our own age differently. The patterns we have traced through deep time, the rhythms of destruction and renewal, do not stop in the distant past. They offer a mirror to our own moment, forcing us to ask, are we merely standing on the surface of another cycle, caught in the very same grand drama that has played out countless times before?
We often perceive our own civilization as unique, as a pinnacle of progress beyond the reach of ancient calamities. Our towering cities, our interconnected networks, our technology that bridges continents and reaches into space, they feel permanent. We navigate complex global systems for food, energy, and communication, believing ourselves masters of our environment. Yet this very complexity, this perceived uniqueness, may also be our greatest fragility. Our intricate civilization rests on a delicate balance, utterly dependent on stable climates, reliable food sources, and unbroken global networks. If any of these foundational pillars were disrupted, whether by forces of nature or by our own hand, our magnificent structures would prove astonishingly vulnerable. History itself offers stark reminders that even great civilizations can collapse with surprising speed. The Maya, who built monumental cities, developed advanced writing, and observed the cosmos with breathtaking precision, saw their urban centers mysteriously abandoned, reclaimed by the silent jungle. The Indus Valley civilization, with its sophisticated urban planning and extensive trade networks, faded from prominence around 4,000 years ago, leaving historians to debate the causes of its sudden decline.
Even the vast Roman Empire, which spanned continents and endured for centuries, eventually crumbled under a series of pressures, its glory reduced to ruins. These were not primitive societies, they were advanced for their time, possessing immense power and knowledge. Yet they fell. If such collapses can happen on a regional scale, affecting seemingly invincible empires, why would a global civilization like ours be immune to similar forces of unraveling? The implications for our future are sobering. The very forces that reshaped ancient worlds, floods, impacts, shifts in climate, still hold sway over our planet. What would happen if Earth resets again, sweeping away our age as it did those before? Consider the sheer vulnerability of our modern coastal cities. Nearly every major urban center today sits beside the sea, a testament to trade and convenience. But if global sea levels were to rise dramatically, or if extreme tsunamis were unleashed, these sprawling metropolises could be drowned, just as countless ancient settlements were at the end of the last ice age. In a matter of generations, entire nations could vanish beneath the ocean, their steel and glass towers becoming silent monuments in the deep, their infrastructure corroding into unrecognizable forms. Or imagine a celestial impact, an asteroid strike, though rare, capable of bringing devastation on a global scale. The resulting ash in the sky could block sunlight for years, crops would fail, and our interconnected global systems, starved of resources, would collapse. Cities would be abandoned, industries silenced, and within a surprisingly short time, humanity could be reduced to small, struggling groups. From their perspective, the modern world would be gone, its intricate workings and vast knowledge systems lost. Within a few centuries, little physical evidence would remain that it ever existed. Even less dramatic, yet relentless changes could act as profound resets. Gradual, but persistent shifts in climate could disrupt food supplies, displace billions, and ignite conflicts that unravel the fragile networks supporting our world. Wars, pandemics, or economic collapses could break down the very fabric of complex society. History shows that great societies often fall not with one single blow, but with a series of overwhelming pressures that exhaust their resilience. In this context, ancient myths, those stories of great floods, of fiery destruction, and of earlier ages consumed by darkness, become more than mere legends. They transform into potential warnings, whispers from our ancestors across the veil of forgotten time. These aren't just descriptions of the past, they are cautionary tales for our own future survival. If previous civilizations ignored such warnings, complacent in their perceived permanence, they may have vanished without a trace, leaving only these distorted echoes. If we ignore them, dismissing the cycles of Earth as something confined to prehistory, we may one day suffer the same fate.
The most unsettling realization that emerges from this cyclical view of history is this: our civilization is not an exception. We are not outside the cycle of Earth's grand, relentless rhythms. We are caught within it, just as earlier ones may have been. Our perceived control over nature, our technological prowess, our vast global reach, these may only be the latest expressions of a pattern that the planet itself will eventually reset. We stand, perhaps, on a fragile peak of achievement, unaware of how temporary it might be, how swiftly the very ground beneath us can shift. The geologic record shows that Earth is rarely stable for long stretches of time. Climate shifts, tectonic movements, and cosmic impacts are all part of its ongoing, powerful rhythm. From this perspective, our civilization, with all its complexities, is merely another layer in the planet's vast, dynamic story. And if a reset were to occur, wiping clean much of what we have built, what would remain of us? It is not just our cities or our machines that would vanish. It is our very understanding of ourselves, our achievements, our philosophies, our triumphs, our detailed historical records. They could all be reduced to faint echoes, fragmented stories passed down by survivors, slowly taking on symbolic meaning. Our modern scientific knowledge, our art, our literature, all the things that define us as a civilization, might become indistinguishable from the myths we now ponder about Atlantis or lost golden ages. The fragility of memory, stretched across generations without the anchors of widespread literacy or enduring artifacts, is immense. A future reset could erase our self-understanding, turning the rich tapestry of our present into mere legends for those who rise again. The knowledge we hold so dear, the progress we celebrate, could be lost to the same deep time that has swallowed countless civilizations before us. When we step back and look at the story as a whole, a different picture of the Earth begins to emerge. It is not the story of a single rise from simple beginnings to modern complexity, but of many rises, each one erased in turn. Civilizations may have lived and thrived before us, each building their own world, each swept away by floods, fire, ice, or time. What we see as history may only be the surface layer of something far older, a cycle repeated countless times. The silence of the deep past is not empty, it is full of possibilities. In its gaps may lie the memories of lost ages, the fragments of forgotten knowledge, the traces of people who once stood where we stand now. Their voices may survive only as myths, their cities only as ruins beneath the sea, their achievements only as puzzling artifacts that do not fit. But in the rhythm of resets, their presence lingers. We cannot know how many times the Earth has been reset. Perhaps only a few, perhaps thousands. Each time, most evidence would be erased. And each time, survivors would rebuild, carrying fragments of what came before, over and over. Humanity may have lived through cycles of loss and renewal. The world we know may not be unique, but one chapter in a longer book, written and rewritten across deep time. What this means for us is uncertain. We may believe we are at the peak of history, but so may those who came before. We may believe our knowledge will last, but time erodes everything. The oceans rise, mountains crumble, and memory fades. In the scale of the Earth, even our greatest monuments are temporary. 1,000 years from now, they may be ruins. 10,000 years from now, they may be gone. 100,000 years from now, even their dust may be unrecognizable. And yet, there is something comforting in this cycle. Resets do not mean an end, but a renewal. Each time, life finds a way to continue. Each time, humanity adapts, endures, and begins again. If Earth resets in the future, it will not be the end of the story, but the beginning of another chapter, one written by those who survive, carrying fragments of memory into a new world. Tonight, as we reflect on these possibilities, the thought is not to fear, but to wonder, to imagine that we are part of something larger than ourselves, a repeating rhythm that stretches back into the deep past and forward into the distant future. The resets of Earth remind us that we are not outside of time, but within it. We are temporary, but also resilient. We are fragile, but also enduring. And perhaps, just as we wonder about the lost civilizations that may have come before us, someday others will wonder about us. They may walk the earth, look at scattered ruins, and ask the same question we ask now. How many times has the earth been reset?
And how many stories have already been forgotten?